Well, hello everybody. It's good to see you all, and I'm here with Michael. Many of you know him as Pastor Mike Rowe, and I'm Ron Paden. And tonight, or for many of you today, maybe, we're gonna talk about dragons. Now, I know for me, and maybe for you, the way I think about dragons has a lot to do with Thorin, Gandalf, and Bilbo Baggins on their way with a bunch of dwarves to the Lonely Mountain, and where they meet Smaug, the dragon. And he's living in the castle that they want to reclaim, so to speak. So, but dragons are maybe not exactly what you think and what I think. It turns out that they may not simply be just those mystical creatures that we've all thought them to be. So tonight we're going to look a little bit at dragons and see, I don't know, it opened my eyes a bit. What do you think, Michael?
Yes, indeed. Yes, I do. Now, this DVD is about the 12th or 13th DVD that we've done. There's this one here that's kind of good also that maybe you'd want to go through. It's just called The Biblical Truth About Dinosaurs. It's two parts on this one disc. If you're interested in this disc or any other discs, you can contact us. The information will be on the DVD. Because you might want to go through this too, because this has lots and lots of things about dinosaurs that we aren't going to talk about tonight, because tonight we're just going to be talking about where dragons fit in, because a lot of people don't know it, and they don't understand exactly that whole thing.
You kind of just gave it away.
Maybe I did, but that's okay. We can shoot off from there, because for English-speaking people, there are two major blockages that stop us from being able to take in the truth. And the first one of those, of course, is that dinosaurs were hundreds of millions of years ago.
Yeah.
And that is a huge English-speaking world blockage. And that's not the case, by the way. It's absolutely not the case. Right. But that is a blockage we have. The other blockage we have is dragons. Because we think two ways about dragons. One is that they're mythical creatures.
Sure.
And they maybe can or maybe not cast spells. And they got these big wings, and they're in these mythical movies and everything.
Right.
And so when English-speaking Americans or English-speaking people, you ask them what a dragon is, well, they will tell you it'll be something like what you introduced us with, right? And that turns out that is not the case at all. And so that's why we're going over this. So the term a dinosaur was coined in the West in 1841. And only since 1841 have we known the term dinosaur. Right. It means terrible lizard, is what it means. And so that's very, very recent in historical terms, 1841, in the Western world. But these creatures have been around for thousands of years, and they have a word that people have called them all over the world. And of course, you know what I'm going to say, they're called dragons. Right. Now, the Chinese, for example, the Tyrannosaurus rex, we call them. The Chinese call them Bao Lung, is what they call it. Yeah. Bao Lung, and Bao Lung means fierce dragon. Yeah. That's what they call it, the Tyrannosaurus rex. And I got a couple shots if you want to show that first one. There he is. There's the Tyrannosaurus rex right there. The next photo shows my son standing next to a head of one, so you can just get a kind of a look at the size of what these things were. Fairly ferocious and big creatures. No wonder the Chinese call them Bao Lung, or fierce dragons. Yeah. The next one shows my wife and her hand next to the foot of one. So you can see, pretty big, pretty spectacular creature. Not so big as the movies make them out to be. Yeah. But they were 13, 14 feet tall. Yeah. That's plenty tall enough. That's a huge thing. The Chinese have a word for brontosaurus, which is Lei Lung. Lei Lung, they call this one. And it means thunder dragon. Same kind of thing. We call them a brontosaurus, or a brachiosaurus is the more modern term for brontosaurus. Yeah. So all over the world, dragons have been part of our culture. And it has been known that dragons and dinosaurs are the very same thing. Now, in our culture, that's not the way we look at it. because we call them dinosaurs, and we think that dragons were some mythical creature. So that's where the blockages come in. And we'll deal with that more as we go along. But dragons have been known to be in many different types, just the very same as dinosaurs, because it's the same thing. But there are three main kinds. One is the kind that live on land, one is the kind that lives in the water, and one is the kinds that can fly. And anyway, so we're going to see as we go along here kind of those kinds. And we're going to just kind of introduce you to dragons in the world, because a lot of people don't realize what's going on here. And so it's a very fascinating, cool thing to do. So we're going to jump right back into the pictures.
So really what you're saying is that dinosaurs, that what we know as dinosaurs, everybody throughout all of history has called them dragons.
Entire of history.
Yeah.
Of the entire record of history.
Yeah.
Dragons.
Up until 1841.
1841, we called them, or the English that discovered this one, coined the term, dinosaur. And so Americans and English-speaking people are historically arrogant.
Yeah, right.
And they think that they know everything and that they are the first in everything. And we're not the first, and we don't know everything. We're way late to the deal here.
Right.
The whole world knows that dinosaurs are dragons. They've been known as dragons. So we're going to go around the world now and kind of, I'm just going to give maybe, we've got 20 or 30 slides here I'm going to show you of artifacts and so on throughout the world that show what it is we're talking about. So you do this first one. This is fascinating drawing. This is known as the oldest drawing in the entire world that survives today.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if it's actually the oldest one that survives today or not, but it's a very old drawing. You can see that it's Chinese, and it's of dragons, of course, or what we would call dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Now, well, anyway, let's just go on to the next one. We'll talk about this. The next one is another very ancient drawing, Chinese drawing of a dragon. The next one is kind of a modern thing. A lot of us have seen this at fairs or what have you, this kind of thing. This is what you see all throughout China, and you see it here in America too. If you go to a Chinese celebration, of course, you'll see dragons. Dragons are part of the Chinese culture everywhere, always has been.
Yeah.
The next slide is a clay figurine of a dragon that was fashioned, and we have an infrared version of this. If you want to go to the next slide, where you can kind of see through it. You can see that the neck at one time or another had been broken off. The head had been broken off. You can see it was kind of put back together, glued or whatever.
Yeah.
I just put it in here because it's an interesting thing, and it does have to do with dragons. Next picture is jewelry. There's jewelry all over the world of dragons or dinosaurs, and here you have a dragon ring. Mm-hmm. The next one is a medieval drawing of a fire-breathing dragon, and they say that this is the first modern pictorial of what we would call a dragon, so medieval times, and not something that was super ancient like the drawings you saw of the Chinese there. This is medieval times, and you see that it's a fire-breathing dragon. It has two sets of wings, and we'll see as we go along. The wings is not as much of a hang-up as you think, and we'll see as we go along here. But anyway, okay, the next one is a petroglyph. And this I call this Puff the magic dragon, because basically it looks just like that. And this petroglyph, I forget where it is. It's in America though. Is a few hundred years old, at least. Yeah. And I don't know who made it or why, but you can see it's what anybody would call a fire-breathing dragon. Yeah. And I don't want to make a big deal about it, but it is a few hundred years old. Yeah. At a minimum. Yeah. But I put it on there just because it's kind of fun. It's kind of interesting. The next one is French. This is some kind of a relief that's in France that shows a fire-breathing dragon. We see this all over the place, all over the world, time and time again. Fire associated with some of these dinosaurs. Fire from their mouths, some of these dinosaurs. It's quite a fascinating thing, actually. Yeah. That would even be associated. And a lot of times we have the idea in our English-speaking blockages that there's no such thing as any of this. So whenever you see anything that's dragon-esque, or especially fire-breathing dragon, you just put it off as, well, that's a myth. Not so fast is what we're saying. Not so fast. There's more to this than we think. Okay, next one is a Brontosaurus petroglyph. I think this is Utah is where this one's found. And so they say in the English-speaking world that dinosaurs were not discovered until 1827. I think the first one was discovered. But here you have something that's, hundreds, if not thousands of years old,
Right.
that depicts a Brontosaurus. Now, why would that be? We got to ask ourselves, why would some
Yeah.
ancient person draw something that we say wasn't discovered until the 1800s?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Now, this is Mammoth Cave, and you see mammoths in cave drawings. Sometimes you got, look what you got there, some antelope or something that looks
Right.
like maybe, and a mammoth. And so they say, well, mammoths were
Right.
10,000 years ago, or they
Right.
say between 10 and 30,000 years ago. And dinosaurs were millions of years ago because we don't see those. They say. That's not accurate or true.
Yeah.
We do see them, and you're going to see that in just a second here.
And here they are both in the same picture.
Well, in this
case.
one, you have just antelope and
Yeah.
and a mammoth. You don't have a dinosaur
No,
here.
right.
But we will in a second, because we do have this stuff. Now here it is. You say, wow, that's awesome. Except you don't know what you're looking at because
No.
it's very hard to see. So, but this is the actual picture of the drawing on the cave. The next slide shows you what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And what this is a mammoth and a dinosaur
Yeah.
together on a pictograph in a cave. Not any cave. This is Bernafal Cave. And this cave is, where is this? Italy, I think. Bernafal Cave. And it's known as the oldest cave drawings in the entire world.
Wow.
And in this cave, we find a pictorial of a dinosaur and a mammoth.
Yeah.
Thousands of years ago, they say, these were made.
Yeah.
And here you have a dinosaur. Okay, next one. This one is on the canyon wall in the United States. Now, on the right there is the actual petroglyph, and on the left is the picture that someone has made of what they think maybe this was. And what's really interesting about this is this was discovered in the late 1800s by an evolutionist named Samuel Hubbard. He was excavating ancient Indian dwellings in the Havasupai Canyon in Arizona, and he came across this. Now, in evolutionists today will never say what evolutionists earlier did. Now, in the 1800s, evolutionists were much more honest than they were today.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read you what this evolutionist says about it. He says, taken in all, the proportions are good. You can put that back on the drawing is fine too. You've got a black screen here. You can go back up to the drawing. If you remember where it is.
I'll find it in a second.
Go ahead. Yeah. Anyway.
In the meantime.
Okay. In the meantime, I'll read to you. Well, that's good
Yeah.
too.
Okay.
He says, taken in all, the proportions are good. It is depicted in the attitude in which man would most likely see it, reared on its hind legs, balancing with a long tail, either feeding or in fighting position, possibly defending itself against a party of men. The fact that some prehistoric man made a pictograph of a dinosaur on the walls of this canyon upsets completely all of our theories regarding the antiquity of man. The fact that the animal is upright and balanced on its tail would seem to indicate that the prehistoric artist must have seen it alive.
Yeah.
And this is ground shaking
Yeah.
that you'd have an evolutionist say such a thing, because you would never have an evolutionist today
Nowadays, no.
saying anything. Now, if you want to look through there and find, I think you already got your finger on it. This is a Pteranodon petroglyph. It's a big flying bird, like a pterodactyl. Most people know pterodactyls.
Yeah.
But this is a Pteranodon, and this is in the Black Dragon Canyon. Now, you got to pay
How do
attention
you-
to this stuff,
Right.
because there's reasons things are named things. Names go way back, and this
Right.
canyon is known as the Black Dragon Canyon.
Yeah.
And here you see this giant prehistoric, they would say, bird.
Yeah.
And the next picture shows it with the guy standing next to it. You can kind of see it there on the canyon wall.
Yeah.
Very cool, very fascinating, cool thing.
Yeah.
That's in Utah. And now we're going to jump over to Babylon. This is on the famous Ishtar Gate that Nebuchadnezzar made. And it is of a dragon. And he says so in the records that he put bulls and dragons
Yeah.
on the gate.
Yeah.
And here you have a dragon. And you can see even it has a forked tongue. We see many, many instances of drawings and so forth that we see of dragons or dinosaurs with forked tongues. So that's an interesting fact you want to keep in mind.
Yeah.
The Babylonian records also show that there was an official position in the king's court for a dragon feeder.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, that's right. Dragons were real.
Yeah.
Dragons were not mythological creatures. They were real creatures.
And they fed them.
Yeah, in this case, the king had dragons.
Yeah.
For some
Maybe
reason or another.
pets or
Yeah,
I don't
or
know
who
if
knows
pet's
what.
the right word, but
Right, and there are many different sizes. So you're not
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
You probably didn't have 4 T-Rexes in a pen somewhere.
right.
But you would have had something more like this.
Yeah.
That was not as aggressive that you could keep or whatever.
Right.
Anyway, so the next one takes us to Blanding, Utah, where you see this brachiosaur or brontosaurus type of a dinosaur on the rocks there. They say that it was made by the Anastasi somewhere around 400 AD to 1300 AD.
Yeah.
The dates are very sketchy on these things, so it's hard to really date this kind of stuff. But anyway, it's a fascinating picture, and it's part of the story.
Yeah.
Next one is on an old Soviet church in Soviet Georgia, what was Soviet Georgia. And you see up there, they have dragons above the window there in the relief there. We call them dinosaurs, of course. They call them dragons. And the other interesting thing is you see it standing on its legs, and it's kind of horizontal, where the early dinosaur depictions that we had in the 1800s showed these big dinosaurs standing kind of on their tail.
Yeah.
And we find out now, through more studies of their bones and so forth, that they actually stood like this shows.
Yeah.
They did not stand on their tails. But anyway, an interesting thing.
Yeah.
The next one we're going to Tucson for. This is part of the Tucson artifacts, talked about in a number of different places. And Tucson artifacts found in 1924. There were a number of Roman artifacts found here. Another interesting story in itself, why there would be Roman artifacts here. But on the Roman artifact is a picture or a etching, you could call it, of a dinosaur. And not just any dinosaur. This kind of looks like the Fred Flintstone dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
Another
In the quarry.
brachiosaur.
Yeah.
And you can see it also has a forked tongue.
Yeah.
And the next one shows a drawing of this, so you can see a little bit of what it is that's on the sword. But that's what we have on the sword there. The next picture is a stone that was taken out of ancient Babylon, and you see the depiction there of a dinosaur also with kind of a, looks like maybe is that a forked tongue? I can't tell from here, but something like that anyway. A large dinosaur type thing on the Babylonian stone.
Yeah.
This next one is a Greek mosaic, ancient Greek mosaic. And you see, you have these soldiers or what you want to call knights or whatever running around. And in the background there, it looks like they're getting ready to fight or try to kill. What's that look like to you, Ron?
A dinosaur.
That's right. It looks like a dinosaur or what they would have called
Dragon.
a dragon. That's right. They're fighting the dragon, something we have hundreds of records of men going out to fight the dragon, hundreds of records.
Right.
And everybody says, well, those are just mythological records.
Right,
Myth, that's
right,
all myth.
right.
That is not true. That's actually something that was going on. Next one is fascinating, one of the most fascinating. This is the depiction of St. George. It's said that St. George, the knight, rode out and slew the dragon, and that he saved the maiden. Now, in this relief, you see St. George on the horse, and you see the maiden back there that he's saving, and you see the dragon. Now, this dragon looks kind of like a crocodile, only with feet, stronger feet, and a different kind of a build than a crocodile with a smaller tail. This would have been able to run real fast on the ground. Where a crocodile goes real fast in the water, but the ground he's kind of slow. These would have been real fast. So if you were up against something like this, it'd be real scary. I mean, this could kill you right now, right? This thing could kill you right now. But this story of St. George is all over the world. And we see pictures and reliefs, paintings of it all over the place. The next one will show you another one of the St. George story killing a dragon. And this artist's idea, and this dragon here even has wings, you see.
Yeah, right.
The next one is Ethiopian, where you see St. George killing the dragon.
Yeah.
The next one is the 12th century, where it shows St. George killing the dragon. And the final one is the 15th century, showing St. George killing the dragon. And there you have the maiden again.
Yeah.
Now, there are dozens of these. We can't show them all. We need 4 or 5 DVDs.
Right.
But there are dozens of them, so I just picked out a few. But we have a dinosaur in the record that looks like the St. George dragon, and here it is here. It's a Nothosaurus. And you see it looks very, very similar to the depictions of the St. George dragon.
Right.
Now, if you had one of these things, it would be quite formidable. It would be probably more terrifying and worse than facing any lion or bear or tiger you could find. It'd be way worse than any of that stuff. It's no wonder that knights were paid dearly for being able to kill the dragon. Most wouldn't even want to face the dragon. Nobody would even want to. But anyway, I think it's fascinating that we even have a dinosaur that matches the depictions.
Right.
Okay, now we're going to go to some drawings around the world. This one's from 1664. And once again, you see the knight facing the dragon.
Yeah.
This was drawn in 1664. And it shows a dragon with wings.
Yeah.
Now, these wings, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean the dragon could fly.
Right.
Because we have flightless birds that have wings also today.
Right.
And doesn't mean that they couldn't fly. But
Right.
but wings and dragons we see all throughout history everywhere. Not all of them, but many of them. Okay, next one. This is from 1694, and it shows, this is not the St. George depiction. This is a different one, but it shows a knight figure fighting what looks to be a fire-breathing dragon, or maybe poison from his mouth or from his breath or fire. And his dog also is helping, and anybody that knows a good dog knows he'd get in on the fight, right?
Right.
Okay, next one. This is the famous Conrad Gessner drawing. Conrad Gessner wrote a book called the Historia Animalium in 1551. This was an encyclopedia of animals. Conrad was famous for dutifully checking and double checking and triple checking all of his sources and all everything. Conrad said that there were 3 kinds of dragons. He said a kind that was on the land, a kind that could fly, and a kind that lived in the sea or in the water. And here you have a dragon, or kind of a snake with wings, with that kind of a different kind of head. Not a snake head, but a different kind of head.
Yeah.
So it's it's not what you'd call a snake. Maybe serpent would be better. I don't know.
Almost like it has a snout.
Right. And we have depictions of these all throughout history, by the way. Flying serpents also. Conrad said that dragons in his day, now this was 1551, he said dragons in his day were not extinct yet, but they were very small and exceptionally rare to find. And now you would say, well, they're all gone. But this is 1551. We're not talking about 600 AD. You know, we're talking about 1551. That's not very long ago. So now I'm going to talk about 2 Kings 18:4. And this is where Moses puts up the brass serpent. Now, people were complaining to Moses when they were out in the wilderness, and the Lord sent fiery serpents to bite the people, which they did. They complained to Moses. God said, make this brass serpent and put it on a pole, and anybody that looks at the brass serpent, they will be healed. And so we have, this is known as the Neshutan, is what it's called, the brass serpent. And what we have here, you can see, is depictions of what the Neshutan was. And we have a long history of it being a snake or a dragon with wings. And in this depiction, you see it's actually a dragon
Looks more like a
with wings.
dragon.
Now this, Hezekiah ordered this to be destroyed because many years later, the Israelites were worshiping the Neshutan.
Right.
And they were actually worshiping it because they thought it was the great healer.
Right.
And so he said, well, you got to destroy that. So did you see it? He's ordered it to be destroyed there.
Yeah.
But anyway, the next one, this Neshutan is from 1864. And here you see the Israelites out there, and there's all these snakes coming along.
Yeah.
Some of them are flying. Some of them are along the ground, biting the people. And you can see they're looking upon the snake that's on the pole so that they can be healed.
Yeah.
And you can see the tradition is that they had wings.
Yeah, right.
Next one is a 12th century Neshutan. And in this depiction, you see once again, you have the snake with the dragon type head with wings. Same kind of thing. The one after that is fascinating because this is what we see in our modern nurses.
Right.
And you see this on the ambulances. You see it on almost everything medical. And what you have here is snakes. In this case, you have two snakes next to a set of wings.
Right.
And what this actually is it's a continuation of the idol worship that the Israelites were doing to the Neshutan. And we still hold it today as a healing factor. And then people in the medical world, all around the whole world, have this same depiction.
Right.
Sometimes it's one snake, sometimes it's two. But they have the wings. You can look on the Russian ambulances, the Greek ambulances, all around the world, they have the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's a continuation of that, the Neshutan. Next slide. This is from 1658. Here you have one that has two legs and a set of wings. It was drawn in 1658. The next one is 1835. This is someone that was an expert on animals. And he's drawing all kinds of the biggest animals that are around. You see the elephants there, and you see these other, different things. And then you see above a dinosaur, or what he thought in 1835 what a dinosaur would look like. As far as I know, there's no dinosaur that look exactly like that. Yeah. But it was his idea of one in 1835. There's a guy named Ulisse Aldrovandi. You can put his picture up next. I always like to show the pictures, because you throw these names out, it doesn't mean much to you. This guy was alive in 1640. And so the only thing you have sometimes is you might find a marble bust, or you might find a portrait, like you see here.
Yeah.
Ulisse Aldrovandi. And the reason he's important is he had a book called Serpentum Draconium in 1640. And I think I have the picture of that book. Here it is here, And you see that it has the depictions of the dragons on there. And he believed in his time that dragons, there were many different kinds of dragons, some that didn't have legs at all, some that had 2 legs, 4 legs, or even 8 legs. And this was the common belief of his time. Yeah. Now this next one is fascinating. This is a portrait of none other than Leonardo da Vinci. And I like to put that on it because Leonardo not only was a famous guy, but he was looked upon in science and art all around the world as one of the foremost geniuses of all time. And here he is. And the reason I put him on here, because the next picture is you see a dragon with wings. Leonardo da Vinci spent a great deal of time in consideration about where the wings would have fit on a dinosaur or a dragon.
Right.
And that's fascinating, because today we would laugh and they would say, well, what kind of fool are you? There's no such thing as that. They were 300 million years ago. But you had the foremost scientists and artists of the time spending time trying to figure out in his mind where he thought the wings would be on one of these creatures.
He was trying to engineer it.
Yeah.
In a sense,
that's right. So the idea that the dragons in the East were celebrated as something that was good luck.
Right.
They have it in the culture everywhere. It was something that they embraced. The dragon was a good thing to the people of the East. The people of the West looked at dragons a little differently. And we thought of the dragon, like from Revelation, as the devil. And we think of the dragon today even as mythical or evil, if there is any such thing at all. It's spiritual and it's evil.
Right.
Dragon. The fear of the dragon is so much that even persists today. As recently as 2007, a group of Welsh Christians asked, they have a red dragon on their flag, on the Welsh flag.
Oh,
a red
okay.
dragon.
Yes, right.
And they asked that should be replaced with the black and gold cross of St. David,
Yeah.
and get that evil, icky
that
dragon out there.
dragon off.
So it's something that persists today. So you have this big difference between the East and the West,
Yeah.
and how they look upon what is known as dragons,
Yeah.
and even what that means. Now I got to set this next thing up a little bit because we're going to jump over to the Bible now. So, woohoo!
You mean the Bible talks about dragons?
Yes, it does.
Wow.
The English translated Bible, we have a number of versions, and they're all pretty relatively new.
Yes.
And this one right here that I have, this is the New King James Version, Schoolfield Study the Bible, and everybody has some kind of a Bible like this.
Right.
The Amplified Bible was translated into English in 1965. You have the New American Standard, 71. The New International Version was 1974. New King James was 1982. Mine, Good News, was 96. The New Living Bible was 1996. The English Standard was 2001. The New English was 2005. The International Standard was 2011.
Yeah.
So, all really new. Before that,
Right.
what you had was the King James of 1611. So
Oh, yeah.
you jump all the way up to way up there to get the English translated versions. And the way this worked is the translators took the ancient languages and translated them into English. They didn't just translate it directly. They said, how can we make our English-speaking people understand what this says?
Right.
And so they took it and they translated it into a way that you could understand it better. And this is fantastically well done. And praise the Lord that we have this.
Right.
But if you're going to study something very carefully in the Bible, of course, you want the concordance. You want to check what the ancient languages say. You want to check historical records. You want to check archaeological records. Everything you possibly can. The serious Bible student will do that.
Yeah.
Because this is how you get down to what something really says. And a discovery has been made regarding this. Now, I will tell you before you jump to the slide, I want to tell you that there are a number of places in the Bible that talk about dragons. Only you don't know it because in your Bible it says jackal.
Right.
Or sometimes it'll say monster or some other thing. And we're going to go through a few of these so that you can see what it is we're talking about. For example, the New King James Version, hold on a second,
Okay,
says in Deuteronomy 32:33, says, their wine is the poison of serpents and the cruel venom of cobras. And so everybody understands what that is.
Right.
Serpent, so you figure snake,
Right.
and cobra also snake, and then it associates poisonous with the creatures. Now, if you want to put the slide up, because I have Young's literal translation. Now, what this is a translation that doesn't try to translate to you in English what it says. It just says directly, word for word, what the ancient version says rather than translating.
Right.
Because, and you see here, it says the poison of dragons is their wine and the fierce venom of asps. So now you don't have serpents. You see that the new versions have changed dragon to serpent.
Right.
Because, why? Because the English-speaking world thinks that a dragon is a myth.
Right. Right.
And if there is anything at all, it is evil. The Bible is talking about real animals. There are not mythological creatures in the Bible.
Right.
Everything the Bible says is of real things, otherwise how confusing would it be? And so here it says the poison of dragons. And they said, well, we can't say dragons to our American-speaking people or English-speaking people because they will get confused and say, wait a second, and it will confuse them. So let's use something else it could be that would be understandable to them, that would not cause the confusion.
Yeah.
And so they changed it to serpents, which is generally okay. And I don't have any problem with our Bibles whatsoever. They're beautiful and fantastically well done. What a blessing to us, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a serious student, you got to get down to the nitty-gritty, the very essence of what is being said, if you want to pull the information out. And here we have, oh, go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
Well, why wouldn't they just call it a dinosaur?
Yeah, well, the reason is because we are taught since the time we are 2 years old that dinosaurs are 300 or 400 million years before man.
Right.
So therefore, it couldn't be a dragon.
Can't be.
Because we are talking about something that is, 4,000 years old.
Right.
Not 300 million.
Right.
And so people think, I'm glad you brought that up, that dragons are myths and dragons are dinosaurs maybe, and they are hundreds of millions of years old, and so they couldn't say dragon.
Can't say either one.
Because English people could not accept either one of those.
Right.
So they said serpents.
Serpents.
It gets the message across, and it's really pretty good.
Right.
Unless, of course, you are getting down to every last thing.
Right.
And what the Bible's talking about here is dragons as a real creature, and is saying that there's something about them that also is poisonous.
Right.
Makes sense that some of the dinosaurs would be poisonous, just like some snakes are and everything else.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, the next slide, you can go to the next slide. Nehemiah 2:13. The King James, New King James, I'm using the New King James because that's the Bible I mostly use, so I'm using this one. But all of your Bibles, especially those ones I just read, are going to say something very similar to the New King James.
Right.
It says, I went out by night through the valley gate to the Serpent Well and the refuse gate, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and its gates were burned with fire. But the Young's literal translation doesn't say anything about serpent, or the serpent well even. It says, and I go out through the gate of the valley by night, and unto the front of the fountain of the dragon, and unto the gate of the dunghill, and I am measuring the walls. So it says dragon, and they had to take that out or change it a little, because people would be confused. What do you mean? How could the Israelites name something about something that was a myth, or something hundreds of millions of years ago, and very confusing? Unless you can get past the blockage. The dinosaurs were not 300 million years ago. Dragons were real and actually dinosaurs. Then this makes perfect sense. They named the fountain the Dragon Fountain. Okay. Okay. Next slide. This is Psalm 74:13. It says, "You divided the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the sea serpents in the water." Okay. The sea serpent doesn't tell you much. Can you tell me what a sea serpent is?
No.
No. You'd have to look at more myths, probably. To even get to a sea serpent.
Even that has a connotation.
It sure does. Young's literal translation says, "Thou hast broken by thy strength sea monster." Monster is, they're not sure about that word there. Sea monster. "Thou hast shivered heads of dragons by the waters." Okay. Once again, we're using dragon. Let's go to the next one. This is Psalm 91:13. The New King James says, "You shall tread upon the lion," real creature, "and the cobra," real creature, "the young lion and the serpent you shall trample underfoot." Nobody has a problem with that, because you figure, okay, you got a lion, a snake, a young lion, and a snake. But the literal translation says, "On lion and asp thou treadest," okay, real creature, "thou trampest young lion and dragon." Okay, dragon. So you have lion is real, an asp is real, young lion is real, and the dragon, real. That's what we have here. Dragon. The Bible is full of dragons. Mentions of dragons all over the place. That's because we're talking about real creatures that we have missed because of the unfortunate, the unfortunate part of society that first off has these myths like crazy, and secondly says dinosaurs were millions of years ago. Okay, Isaiah 27:1 says, "In that day the Lord with his severe sword, great and strong, will punish Leviathan, the fleeing serpent, Leviathan, that twisted serpent, and he will slay the reptile that is in the sea." Okay, so they put it to reptile now. Because the dragon is confusing. The literal translation says, "In that day lay a charge doth Jehovah with his sword, the sharp and the great and the strong, O Leviathan, a fleeing serpent, and Leviathan, a crooked serpent. He has slain the dragon that is in the sea." So here we have dragon or dinosaur, and where does it live? This is the sea-going one, right? A sea, well, you could even call it a sea serpent. But you miss the point that we're talking about dragon or dinosaur. Isaiah 35:7. The parched ground shall become a pool, and the thirsty lands springs of water. In the habitation of jackals, where each lay, there shall be grass with reeds and rushes. Okay, so we see a jackal brought in here, and the jackal is a real animal. It's a little dog. It has a little bark like a dog. Right. People that live where jackals are, they keep them as pets and everything, just like dogs. It's a wild dog, little wild dog. It has a little yip, kind of like a coyote does, kind of a thing. Yeah. But here it's associating the animal and where you can find some of these. And in this case, they say that he'd be in the swamp or
That's not where I think of jackals.
No, jackal is a desert animal. It's a desert dog. It doesn't live in the marshes in the swamp. Yeah. But the Young's literal translation, of course, says, "And the mirage has become upon, and the thirsty land fountains of waters, in habitation of dragons, its place of crouching down, a court for reed and rush." And so not only does this show us dragon and associating it with a swamp, but also says it crouches down in there. Yeah. Right? This is perfectly good and fits exactly like it's supposed to, of course. Right. For a dragon does not fit a jackal, but when they did the translations in the early 19th, late 18th, early 19th centuries, they could not say dragon. They had to say something else. They said, well, we'll say jackal. And it generally gives you the idea. We don't lose much there. Unless you're studying specifically a type of animal in the Bible. Okay, next one. This is Isaiah 43:20. It says, "The beasts of the field will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert to give drink to my people, my chosen." So he says, God here is saying everything honors him. The animals do and the people do, because he's the one who's responsible for giving them their food and their water. Right. Only it says jackals here. Right. Only the actual translation does not say jackals. It says, "Honor me doth the beast of the field, dragons, and daughters of an ostrich, for I have given in a wilderness waters, floods, and a desolate place to give my people drink." Yeah. So it's talking about dragons as real animals. Right? It's a real animal, the dragon. Next one. Jeremiah 14:6. Wild, and this is the New King James, of course. "And the wild donkeys stood in desolate heights. They sniffed at the wind like jackals." Excuse me. "Their eyes failed because there was no grass." So you have jackals, and you have associated with jackals something about the wind, or they're breathing the wind, or snuffing the wind. Right. The literal translation says, "And wild asses have stood on high places. They have swallowed up wind like dragons. Consumed have been their eyes, for there is no herb." So this associates dragons, real creatures, and associates something with their breath or their movement that has something to do with the wind or the movement of the air. Right. And we see this in historical references everywhere, that when the dragons moved, that you heard this rushing sound of wind, and when they breathed and so forth. You see that all over the place, and you see it here now also in Jeremiah 14:6. Most people miss because you don't know that it's actually talking about a dragon or a dinosaur. Very it's actually talking about a dinosaur. Yeah. Right. Okay, next one. Jeremiah 51:34. This is a good one. "Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, has devoured me. He has crushed me. He has made me an empty vessel. He has swallowed me up like a monster. He has filled his stomach with my delicacies. He has spit me out." Okay? Yeah. Somebody's talking about being destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. Right. Can you tell me what a monster is?
No.
Well, because we could be talking about a one-eyed creature. Yeah, we could be talking about Frankenstein. Right. What's a monster? This is very unclear. What you swallow me up like a monster? We don't even know what a monster is. Yeah. But when we read the real translation, it comes more clear into view. I shouldn't say real translation, but the literal translation. Right. Because I want to make very clear that there's nothing wrong with our Bibles, using our Bibles for everything. Yeah. They're fantastically well done. There was no misdeeds in mind when these translations were done.
Right.
This is not nefarious. This was done to help us. In some ways, it doesn't help us, but it was done to help us, and it's fantastically well done.
Yeah.
But when you want to get down to the nitty-gritty,
Right.
that's why we're doing this. Anyway, it says that devoured us and crushed us as Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He has set us as an empty vessel. He has swallowed us as a dragon.
Right.
He has filled his belly with my dainties. He has driven us away. So here you have being swallowed up like a dragon. If you remove the blockages
Right.
of the myth, the blockages of the hundreds of millions of years, and you understand that we are talking about dinosaurs, then this comes into focus real well. He swallowed us like dinosaurs, as could say, if they had the term dinosaurs.
Right. And you could believe that a creature that big could actually swallow
Well,
a
absolutely.
man.
You have T-Rexes running around and
Right.
everything else. You could be swallowed up like any number of them.
Right.
Real small ones would swallow you right up.
Right.
I mean, the small ones were twice the size of a lion.
Yeah.
And a lion could eat you.
Yeah.
But one may not swallow you up in one bite.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, no.
but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting down to it now. Next one is Jeremiah 51:37. It says, Babylon shall become a heap, a dwelling place for jackals, an astonishment and a hissing without an inhabitant. So it's giving us the animal, a jackal in this case, and is associating with that a hissing sound.
Yeah.
And jackals, like I already mentioned before, don't make hissing sounds.
Yeah,
they make
yeah,
little
yeah.
yips and yipes, kind of like a.
Yeah.
It's different, but it's similar to a coyote in kind of a way. And they bark too.
Yeah.
They don't make any hissing sound. But when you get to Young's literal translation, you have, and Babylon hath been for heaps a habitation of dragons, an astonishment, and a hissing without an inhabitant. So not only does it bring out, okay, the animal, a
Right.
dragon, but the animal itself is an astonishment, this animal, and it associates a hissing sound with it,
Yeah.
right? Fascinating stuff. Next one, Micah 1:8. Okay. This one says, Therefore I will wail and howl. I will go striped and naked. I will make a wailing like the jackals and a mourning like the ostriches. So once again, we're introduced with jackals. And this one associates with it a sound that it
Right.
makes, a wailing sound.
Yeah.
Now I want to point out, all these passages we're using, these are prophecies against enemies and all kinds of different stuff that's going on here. But what we're doing here is we're just pointing out very specifically the wording, because we're pointing out because we're taking the dragon out of here,
Right.
or we're putting it back in, really.
Right,
Putting the
right,
dragon
right.
back in. And so these verses are not all just only about animals.
Right.
They're about lots of different stuff,
Yeah, yeah.
which we aren't going into for our purposes.
But when you put the dragons or the dinosaurs back in,
Yeah.
it makes sense now.
And it makes it way
Yeah,
better
Right.
than putting an animal that was not meant to
Yeah.
be there.
Right. Right.
And they innocently put jackal so that the English-speaking people would understand.
Yeah.
I understand it. And maybe I would have done the same thing, or we would have done the same
Right,
thing had
right.
we been doing it, right? Anyway, the literal translation says, For this I lament and howl. I go spoiled and naked. I make a lamentation like the dragons, and a mourning like daughters of an ostrich. So here you have you have the animal, the
Right.
dragon, and we associate with it is a mourning sound or a scream or
Yeah.
a some kind of a sound associated with the dragon
Yeah.
that was kind of like a mourning sound.
Yeah.
Sound
Like a
of something
guttural.
Yeah, a guttural, scream or howl.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard a deer
Oh.
scream?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
deer, if they're being attacked, or
Yeah,
whatever,
I have.
they'll scream, and it almost sounds like children
Yeah.
screaming. A really shrill screech.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there we go with that one. This associating the sound. Now this is the last one of these we're going to do. This is Psalm 148:7. The New King James says, "Praise the Lord from the earth, you great sea creatures, and all depths." And the literal translation says, "Praise ye Jehovah from the earth, dragons and all deeps." Now,
Yeah.
what's being said here is this passage, Psalm 148, is talking about everything praising the Lord.
Right.
Even the grass and the trees, the dirt,
Right,
everything
right,
praises the Lord.
right.
And it says the dragons and all deeps in the literal translation. Once again, dragon has been changed to sea creature for
Right.
our own understanding, better understanding. But the actual rendition is dragon. So, so you have dragons and deeps. Now, what's really great about this is that Augustine himself gives a commentary on Psalm 148:7.
Yeah.
So Augustine was what, 4th century.
Yeah.
And we got a picture of Augustine, and I want you to put this up because this is important. Because once again, we have real people. And here is a bust of none other than Augustine from the 4th century.
Yeah.
And a real person, quite a great man, a Christian forefather.
Right.
A lot about him if you ever want to study Augustine from his sinful early days and so forth. All kinds of really cool stuff about him. Anyway, he has an exposition that he did on Psalm 148. And I want to read this to you while you're looking at his picture, because he explains what this means, and it's really eye-opening. And we'll get to it right here. It says, let him then turn himself to things on earth too, since he's already spoken the praises of things in heaven. Now, in Psalm 148, it's talking about how the heavens praise God.
Right.
Now, Augustine here is saying, well, now we're going to go to earth. And he says, praise ye the Lord from earth, from the earth. For wherewith began he before? Praise ye the Lord from heaven, and he went through things in heaven. Now hear of things on the earth. Here, he says, dragons and all abysses. And Augustine explains that abysses are depths of water and all the seas, and the atmosphere and the clouds all pertain to the abyss in this passage. And he says, where there are clouds, where there are storms, there is rain, lightning, thunder, hail, snow, and all that God wills should be done above the earth by this moist and misty atmosphere. All this he has mentioned under the name of earth, because it is very changeable and mortal, unless you think that it rains from above the stars, which of course it doesn't.
Right.
All these happen here close to earth, he says. Sometimes even men are on tops of mountains and see the clouds beneath them. Now, you probably have seen that.
Yeah.
A lot of people have. If you've ever hiked up high in the mountain, you can see you're actually above the clouds. Kind of a cool thing. He continues. He says, often it rains, and all commotions which arise from the disturbance of the atmosphere, those who watch carefully see that they happen here in this lower part of the universe. You see then what kind all these things are, these changeable, troublous, fearful, and corruptible, yet they have their place. They have their rank. They too fill, in their degree, fill up the beauty of the universe, and so therefore they praise the Lord. Mm-hmm. So he's talking about all abysses.
Yeah.
And the abysses he's explaining here, in his way of thinking, is all the waters that has to do in the world, the oceans, the rivers, and even the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And where the rain comes down, the clouds, everything. He turns to them. This is Augustine. He says, he turns then to them as though he would exhort them to, or us, that by considering them we may praise the Lord. Now he talks about dragons.
Right.
And this is our 4th century Augustine, the historic forefather that we know so much about. He says, dragons live about the water, come out from caverns, fly through the air. So he says there are 3 kinds of dragons.
Right.
You got water kind, you got kind that fly, and you got kind that live on the land, which we've seen repeatedly through history and also now with Augustine himself and biblically. He says the air is set in motion by them. Just like that Bible verse we read where it associated the moving of winds with the dragons, right?
Right.
He says dragons are a huge kind of living creatures, greater there are not upon the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, with them he begins, dragons and all abysses. I love this, to have such a great and historic forefather commenting on this passage and explaining to us what a dragon is.
Right.
Now, if you don't even know that it says dragon, you never get here.
Right.
But we're explaining to you now that you can pull that out of there if you want to. All of this stuff is available for anybody to find. He goes on to finish it, and he says, there are caves of hidden waters whence springs and streams come forth. Some come forth to flow over the earth. Some flow beneath secretly. All this kind, all this damp nature of waters, together with the sea and this lower air, are called abyss or abysses, where dragons live and praise God. He says, what? think ye that dragons form choirs and praise God? Because it's a rhetorical question.
Right,
Of course,
correct.
dragons don't praise God. He says, far from it, but do ye, when you consider the dragons, which are these great giant creatures which have never been so big before, regard the maker of the dragon, the creator of the dragon, then when you admire the dragons and say, great is the Lord who made these, then the dragons praise God by your voices.
That's right.
Well said. Could not have been better laid out and better said than by Augustine himself, 4th century forefather, explaining to us all what dragons are.
Right.
Isn't that fantastic? What an unbelievable resource we have here.
Right.
As we go through these evidences, you will start to see, as we break down the blockages of the 300 million year old dinosaur falsehood, now there's your myth.
Right.
And as we go through the myth of the dragon, and we discover that the dragon was not a myth, but it was not something that we look at as a dragon. It's a different kind of thing. We're actually talking about dinosaur. It's really coming into view.
Right.
Now we're going to go to the next guy, if you want to put his bust up there. This is none other than Marco Polo himself. Marco Polo was the 13th century Venetian explorer that traveled around China and all around. And we have many great references to history from Marco Polo. And the children played the goofy game in the pool. I don't know what that's about, why you would say Marco Polo.
Right.
I have no idea why they would do it. But anyway, we have that too. But anyway, so you have this great man, and he has left us reams of books and journals regarding his travels.
Right.
And we refer to those all throughout history, all over the place. But there's one passage here that most people never hear of. And we're going to give it to you right now because you should know what this is. And if you want to put up the next picture, because I'm going to read you this passage, and you can tell me what you think Marco Polo is talking about. Now, Marco Polo, in this passage, the troublemakers will say, well, what he's talking about is a type of alligator.
Right.
In this passage, is what they say. It's nonsense, but let me read this to you. He says, leaving the city of Yachi, and this is in China, and traveling 10 days in a westerly direction, he says, you reach the province of Karazhan, which is also the name of the chief city there. Here are seen huge serpents, 10 paces in length, which is about 30 feet or so.
Wow.
And 10 spans girt of the body, which is about 8 feet around. So 30 feet.
Yeah.
So you're talking telephone pole here, right?
Right.
That's pretty significant.
Right.
He says at the forepart, near the head, they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger, and their eyes are larger than a 4-penny loaf and very glaring. 4-penny loaf, basically what we're talking about is a dinner plate.
Yeah.
Okay, real big eyes is the point he's making here. They got little tiny arms on the right up by the head with little claws on them. Now, I wonder what that could possibly be.
Yeah.
Well, it might be exactly what we're looking at right here. It says the jaws are wide enough to swallow a man. This is the biblical reference we get.
Right.
And also Marco Polo. I don't know if he was a Bible man, but he's practically quoting it. He says the teeth are large and sharp, and their whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any kind of animal can approach them without terror.
Yeah.
Sounds like this thing right here we're looking at, don't it?
Yeah. Looks pretty scary.
Yes. He says others are met of a smaller size, they're being 8, 6, or 5 paces long. And the following method is used for taking them. So he's going to explain to us how you kill one of these things.
Yeah.
He says in the daytime, by reason of the heat, they lurk in caverns or maybe in swamps, like we read in the one account there.
Yeah.
Where they come from at night, they issue to seek their food, and whatever beast they meet and can lay a hold of, whether it be a tiger, a wolf, or any other kind, they devour it.
Yeah.
Of course, because this is the predator, right?
Yeah, right.
He says, after which they drag themselves towards some lake, spring of water, or river in order to drink. He says, by their motion in this way along the shore and their vast weight, because these are big things he's talking about,
Yeah.
They make a deep impression as if a heavy beam has been drawn along the sands. Those whose employment it is to hunt them observe this track, for which they most frequently are accustomed to go. Okay, so they can see where they go because they leave these marks in the mud.
Right.
Be real careful go looking at that, huh?
Yeah.
You're be too close to this thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, and it says that what they do is they fix into the ground several pieces of wood armed with sharp iron spikes. They cover over everything with sand in such a manner as not to be perceptible. When, therefore, the animals make their way towards the places they usually haunt, they walk across these things, and these spikes, like Vietnam or something, stab into them when they drag their bellies across the sand there. It stabs into them, and they're wounded by these instruments, he says, and they are speedily killed.
Right.
The crows, as soon as they perceive them to be dead, set up to scream, and this serves as a signal to the hunters who advanced on the spot.
Yeah.
Now you see, nobody's even going to so much as go look if it's dead yet.
Yeah, right.
No one will go close. Not even they want to see if it's dead.
Right.
We'll wait till the crows say something.
Right.
And when they say the food is ready, because that's what the crows do to each other,
Right.
then we'll go. And that's what they did. They probably did that real careful.
Right.
He says, they proceed to separate the skin from the flesh, taking care immediately to secure the gall, which is most highly esteemed in medicine. The flesh of the animal is sold at a dear rate, being thought to have a higher flavor than other kinds of meat, and by all persons it is esteemed a delicacy. So people have asked me, well, how is it that these things would have become extinct? And here you have the reason right here.
Right.
Not only were they a terror to man, and as we're growing in population, and there's getting more and more of these people, you got to do something about these things. And so not only do you have to get rid of the things, but also they were used for medicine.
Right.
So they really, really needed that kind of medicine, which they got from these things.
Right.
And the meat. The restaurants would have been clamoring, anybody that can get this kind of meat, we will pay you top dollar.
Right.
And if you can get the medicine, which is the very first thing they got, because that was the highest dollar, medicine. So these things were hunted because of their value, which would have been top dollar high value, in the same way that we got rid of all the seals in certain areas around the world, and the buffaloes at one time, and so on. We did to the dinosaurs. Right. Only we got rid of all of them.
Became a commercial venture.
It was something that was exceptionally valuable. So you would need to, it would be valuable, exceptionally valuable if you could get one of these. You see these shows today where guys maybe get a tuna or something like that, and they go in, it's worth $2,000, this one tuna. And so they bring it in. It'd be the same kind of thing, only there were no regulations or anything. People were glad when the creature was no longer there because you couldn't go out in the woods by yourself in particular areas because, well, you'd be eaten.
Yeah, no, it was terrifying.
And obviously everyone was terrified. We can see from the biblical accounts as well as these historical accounts from Augustine and also Marco Polo. So when we can once we take the blockages out of the way, and we see that dinosaurs were not hundreds of million years ago, but they were fairly recently.
Right.
Remember the animal book from 1500 said that there were very few and they were very rare and they're very small at that time, but there were still a few around.
Right.
Now there are none around. And we have taken it in our evolutionary nonsensical science that serves us today, and they say, well, there were 300 million years ago.
Right.
So it takes it, and they tell us that this is a matter of fact. Everybody knows it, and you're a fool if you think otherwise. But the real truth is they were around and all the way up until the 1500s. When we understand that, we take that blockage away. When we can take the other blockage away, that dragons were real, and what we call dinosaurs today were in fact what has always been known as dragons. Then our minds are expanded and opened up. We've got the blockages out of the way. The truth can be discerned. Knowledge comes out, and now we can look at the Bible without the blockages.
Right.
And when you look at the Bible without the blockages, the words fly off the page.
Right.
Okay? So now we're going to jump to Job 40, verse 15 through 24. Now this is Job. Job is on his high horse, and the Lord is putting him in his place. And the Lord is going to explain to him this animal. Yeah. He's explaining a couple of animals he's going to do here. In the next verse I'm going to read is an animal also. And he's going to explain the greatest animal he ever made, or the biggest he ever made. And he's going to explain it to Job. And this is so fantastic. This is just going to come alive for us. It says, "Look now at the behemoth, which I made along with you." Mm-hmm. Okay? Right. Number one, the very first verse. When were dinosaurs and when were they made? Well, God just told us.
Yep.
Right here in his word, the blockages have been removed. Look at the behemoth, which I made along with you. Right. He eats grass like an ox. Now see the strength in his hips. I think maybe I got a picture of that. The behemoth, there he is here. Okay. He says, "I made this along with you." He eats grass like an ox. Now see now the strength in his hips and his power in his muscles, in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. His bones are like beams of bronze. His ribs are like bars of iron. He is the first in the ways of God, which is what this is Hebrew, which means the biggest that has ever been made. The first in the ways. The biggest thing God ever made. Look at this thing. God is calling him the behemoth. It's a good name, a real big thing. And that he eats grass, and he is very powerful, and he has a giant, powerful tail that's like a cedar. It says, "Indeed, the rivers may rage, yet he is not disturbed. He is confident, though the Jordan gushes into his mouth." Of course, because this thing would not be moved by a river. It doesn't matter if the river is overflowing. Right. If you have a 100-ton animal, it's going to stand right there. Right. It's no big deal.
Water's just going to go around him.
And what I love about this is not only does he tell us he made it with us, so we know that dinosaurs were made along with man, but he said we get that he ate grass, which we already know from our studies that this was a grass-eating dinosaur, and he was very powerful. And here it calls his bones like beams of bronze and so forth. What it means is it's real strong. Yeah. It's a big, powerful, strong animal. Oh, yeah. But his tail. So in the margins of our Bibles, oftentimes you will see where it says, well, we believe this to be possibly an elephant or a hippo. And the reason that says that in the margin of your Bible is because the biggest animal we got is an elephant or a hippo. Right. And so they're saying, well, that's the biggest one we got. We can't go to dinosaur because those were 100 million years ago. No such thing as dragon. So what do we got? Well, we got elephants and we got hippos. Right. So you show them what an elephant tail looks like right there. Would you call this a cedar?
No.
Well, no, it's a little skinny little flipping thing you get flies off of, right? The next one is a hippo tail. Now, I've sort of zoomed this in a little too close. Yeah. But you see it's got this little tiny flapper kind of thing on his butt.
Certainly not a cedar.
It's not a cedar. No. There's nothing even close. The Bible is not talking about that. In some Bibles, it actually says that it may be talking about the behemoth, a type of plesiosaur or extinct dinosaur. It does say that in some Bibles. Yeah. But most of them, it will say elephant or hippo. So, fantastic. So now we're going to go to the next. This is what I love about the Bible. When you can take the blockages away, the words dive off of the book. Right. They just come out and hit you in the face. Right. Wow, it's all right here. Why couldn't we ever see this? It's because we had blockages. Right. Remove the blockages and wow. So now we're going to go to the Leviathan. This is also a real animal that God is going to point out to Job. You want to put up that next picture. This is a Spinosaurus. And it is my feeling that it is one possibility that God is talking about when he mentions Leviathan. And so we'll have this up. I'm going to read you this passage in Job 41 because God is going to tell now Job about Leviathan. He's already told him about the biggest plant-eating thing he ever made, animal. Now he's going to tell him about the most ferocious animal he ever made. Right. He says, "Can you draw Leviathan with a hook or snare his tongue with a line which you lower?" Now, of course, the answer is no to all this stuff. Yeah. Can you put a reed through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make many supplications to you? Will he say, please, please don't harm me?
Yeah, yeah,
You
right.
know, will he speak softly to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? Anybody that knows what a Leviathan is, of course, they're telling, in their mind, they're like, nobody goes near this thing.
Yeah, no, for
They'll
Job.
kill you
it
right
would-
now.
Right.
You instantly would know this
Correct.
is obviously, nobody goes, this is ridiculous. In fact, of course it's ridiculous. God is showing Job
yeah.
how ridiculous he's being through this.
Right.
He says, will you play with him as with a bird? Will you leash him for your maidens? Will your companions make a banquet for him? Will they apportion him among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with harpoons, or his head with fishing spears? Well, you can't even get close enough to doing it.
Yeah.
Lay your hand on him, remember the battle, and you'll never do it again.
Yeah.
Of course. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Now we're talking about early man. We're not talking about people that have the weaponry and so forth that
Yeah,
we have
right.
today. What you had were spears and arrows and maybe some of those, what you call trebuchets that throw the stones.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. It says, shall not one be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me, God says. And the Lord says, who has preceded me that I should pay him? Everything under the heaven is mine. He's making the point to Job. Okay, he goes back to the animal. I will not conceal his limbs, his mighty power, or his graceful proportions. Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face? Would you open the doors of this thing's face?
No.
Well, no, he'd eat you before you even got over there.
Right.
With his terrible teeth all around. His rows of scales are his pride, shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near another that no air can even come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together and cannot be parted. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights. Sparks of fire shoot out. Now remember, the Lord is explaining a real animal,
Correct.
and he's giving real attributes of a real animal here.
Right.
He is not equating this to anger or any of this kind of stuff.
Right.
This is not, this is not an allegorical passage.
Right,
This is
right,
a literal translation of passage. He's talking about an animal, and he's saying sparks of fire shoot out
Right.
of this thing. And where you have fire, you have smoke.
Right.
He says, verse 20, smoke goes out of his nostrils. As from a boiling pot and burning rushes, his breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and sorrow dances before him. The folds of his flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is hard as a stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When it raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashings, they are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does spear, dart, or javelin. He regards iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. In other words, these things just don't have much of an effect.
Right. Right.
The arrow cannot make him flee. In other words, the arrow does nothing to him. It's just going to bounce off.
Right.
He doesn't run when somebody shoots arrows at him. And you'd probably just make him mad, and then he'd come over and eat you.
Right.
He mentioned this probably could run 25, 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It'd come flying out of the water and jump you down right now. He says, sling stones become like stubble to him. So never mind the sling.
Right.
It just bounced off his armor. Darts are regarded as straw. He laughs at the threat of javelins. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He spreads pointed marks in the mire. Now
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
He makes big marks when he goes through the mud. Isn't this what Marco Polo was
Right.
saying in his account? That they made big marks in the mud.
Right.
That's how you could track them.
Right.
You wouldn't go near them, but that's how you could track them.
Right.
He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining wake behind him, which is interesting. we don't know what this could possibly be, but there may be some type of a chemical residue or whatever it is. I use the term chemical, but it'd be a more natural substance. Which allows this thing to breathe fire, not too much differently than a bombardier beetle, which suits the 200-degree blast out of its rear and all that kind of similar kind of a thing here.
Right.
And whatever that is, somehow maybe leaves a film behind it.
Yeah.
Anyway, a little speculation there is all. One would think the deep had white hair. Don't know about that either, what that's referring to.
Yeah.
He says here, on earth there is nothing like him which is made without fear.
Yeah.
So this thing fears nothing.
Right.
And it's maybe the only thing God ever made that has no fear. Even the brontosaurus would fear something. He would fear this. Right? But this fears nothing. This is number one, the A-list predator.
Yeah.
This
top of the food chain.
Top, yeah. The Spinosaurus was about 10 to 15 feet bigger than a T-Rex.
Wow.
So it was bigger and more powerful than a T-Rex. It lived in the water. It breathed air, but it lived in the water.
Yeah.
And in this passage, we're talking about a dinosaur or a dragon that lives in the water, but that can come on the land. The same sort of thing. That's why I picked out the Spinosaurus. It doesn't mean that the Spinosaurus is Leviathan, but he might be.
Yeah.
It's a real good possibility. The interesting thing here is 7 times in the passage, God relates something about heat or fire coming from the animal.
Right.
What God, or what the Lord is presenting this to us in His Word, now that we can take the blockages away from our eyes, the Lord in His Word is explaining a fire-breathing dragon.
That's right.
A fire-breathing dragon.
Right.
And we miss it because we can't pull it out of our scriptures.
Right.
Unless you do more specific study. That's why we're doing this. It's very, very cool. Now, before we get to the last thing, we was talking about there the parts of his armor fitting together so tightly that even air wouldn't go through it.
Yeah.
So this next picture is an animal that Ron and I found ourselves, the discovery we made. We believe this to be an Ankylosaurus.
Yeah.
But you can see the armor on it. Now, it's a stone now because it's totally fossilized.
Yeah.
But you can see the armor. And the next picture shows it a little closer if you want to see that one. And you can see how tightly the armor fit together on this animal.
Right.
So tightly that it would be just like what the Bible said there.
Yeah, right.
That not even air would fit through between the armor of the thing. This is pretty cool. And we had the pleasure of, and the Lord blessed us in being able to find this animal out in northern Arizona, and that we made the discovery of. So a very, very cool thing there. But you want to put our faces back on here, and we can now see. Man, I might have to go back to the top.
Yeah. Oh wait, let's try this one.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyway, so we're going to get a couple of takeaways. Ron, if you want to start us off, what does this mean now that we have this information and the blockages have been removed from us?
Well, it means a lot of things, of course, but one of the things that really jumped out to me was that God gave us, or gave to, as part of creation, these massive creatures, these dinosaurs, these dragons, to show us His glory.
No kidding.
And His majesty and His power, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a shame, I think, unlike Job, who the accounts that we read meant something to him, we don't have anything like that anymore. We can't walk out and see this massive creature and connect it with God.
And even the references that we have to these things have been taken away from us.
Right.
Because the modern evolutionary nonsense that we are filled with everywhere in every aspect of our lives tell us hundreds of millions of years ago, and also tells us dragons are mythological creatures that can cast spells and stuff.
Right.
And so we have in our minds that we'll just push that out of the way.
Right.
And we can see that actually is not the case in either one of those situations. I think another thing is that Satan uses dinosaurs. Yeah. Every child that's 2 or 3 years old knows about dinosaurs because we present them with the little toys. I had them too. You probably had them too.
Oh, yeah.
And we are told in every single museum every roadside stop that has where a glacier used to be or anything like that, or wherever any dinosaur bones are found ever, anywhere. We have millions of years, and it's ground into us non-stop, continually, every minute of our lives.
Right.
And it is a lie. And so Satan is using that as absolute proof that there's no such thing as God.
Right.
Now, if you can establish that dinosaurs were 300 million years ago, well, you got a real good argument.
Right.
There is no such thing as God. They're right. There's no such thing as God.
Right.
And this is why that has been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed by Satan
Right.
all of these years, and we have it in our faces continually all the
Right.
time. The wonderful thing is we can pull this stuff out, and it's fantastic. We understand that this is, to some people who have never heard this before, this is fantastic information. You say,
Right.
wait a minute, this is impossible. Well, why is it impossible? It's because of your teaching, your history
Right.
about your lives, what you've been told, what you've learned, what you've read in books. And so we have the blockages.
Yeah, it's all we've ever known.
And if you
really.
can remove the blockages, which we can do, it is
Right.
available to us to remove the blockages.
Right.
And if we can do that, then we can read God's word. And lo and behold, it opens up and shows us all kinds of things. So
Right.
even though the English translators changed the dinosaur or the dragon references to jackals and other things, the Bibles that we have here, like this one,
Right.
fantastic. Don't change a thing. But if you want to learn more, it shows not only can you learn more, but it's available to you, all kinds of things, and sometimes things you never even thought of that were even
Right.
remotely possible, right in here all the time if you can study it. And this is available to
right.
all of us. You don't have to be an expert in this. This is available to all of us. If you want to look up this information, it's available for you too.
Right.
With the internet the way it is today and everything, this information is available to us all.
Right.
All right. Well, anyway, that's about what we got all for you tonight. Now,
Yeah.
if you want more information, you've got questions, or you want some more of these discs or any of this kind of stuff, contact us on the information that's on the DVD, and we'll get right back to you. We can ship you out some discs, or we can come and give talk if you want to talk, or any of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Just let us know what you want, and we'll certainly do that. So that'll be on here too. And so keep that in mind, and don't forget that we do have the biblical truth about dinosaurs. This is different. This is not what we're given now.
Yeah.
Today is about dragons. This is the other information. This is archaeological and historical information
Right.
on dinosaurs. It's fascinating and a part of the whole story. So
Right.
anyway, love
Well,
you guys.
It's been great.
Bless you, and we'll see you next time in another one. We'll do another great subject coming
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Okay, you take
All
care
right.
now. Okay,
See ya.
bye-bye.